everyone, and welcome back to the PM Technology. The B-52 has been the preeminent American heavy bomber of the last 54 years. The massive aircraft served throughout the heightened periods of the Cold War as a nuclear deterrent, as a dedicated bomber and reconnaissance platform in the Vietnam War, and as a carpet bombing nightmare for the Iraqi army in the 1991 Persian Gulf War. More recently, the B-52 has seen combat actions in the 2001 assault on Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the 2003 invasion of Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom. The Stratofortress aircraft has evolved into a multi-role aircraft equally capable of dedicated bombing, strategic bombing, anti-shipping, nuclear warfare, mine-laying, close support, reconnaissance, electronic warfare, and maritime surveillance sorties. Upon its inception into the USAF inventory, the B-52 became America's first long-range, swept-wing heavy bomber and currently maintains the title of longest-serving bomber in United States military history. B-52 origins. The Boeing firm had made a name for itself beginning with its aircraft developments throughout the interwar years following World War I. By World War II, the company would become a household name thanks to its development of the stellar B-17 Flying Fortress, serving in both the Pacific and European theaters, as well as its follow-up design, the B-29 Superfortress long-range, high-altitude heavy bomber charged with dropping the 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The commercial Stratocruiser appeared in the post-war years, as did the military B-47 Stratojet bomber. It was no surprise then that the designation of Stratofortress was selected for what would become one of the Boeing's biggest successes to date. Origins of the B-52 stem from a specification issued through the Forward-Looking Air Materiel Command, AMC, on November 23, 1945. AMC fell under the branch of the United States Air Force at the end of World War II, though it originally began service in 1917 as part of the U.S. Army Signal Corps. This new specification called for a next-generation long-range, intercontinental, high-altitude strategic bomber to replace the already in development Convair B-36 Peacemakers. In February of 1946, the Boeing Aircraft Company, Consolidated Aircraft Corporation, and the Glenn L. Martin Company all jumped into the fray with their respective responses. Boeing's team devised the Model 462 as a straight-wing, multi-engine design powered by 6X Wright T-35 Typhoon turboprop engines rated at 5,500 each. On June 5, 1946, Model 462 was selected ahead of the pack, and the legacy of the B-52 was born in the designation of XB-52. A full-scale mop-up contract was then awarded. By now, the USAF, United States Army Air Force, was already looking beyond the qualities of the Model 462, fearing that the aircraft was already rendered obsolete in its conventional design approach and could never reach the intended goals of the original specification, especially in terms of its range. As such, the USAF canceled their contract with Boeing, and the Model 462 was dead. The Model 464-35 was another Boeing design team proposal fitting 4X turboprop engines with contra-rotating propellers. Wing sweep was increased more so than previous attempts, beginning to define the look of the Stratofortress. With in-flight refueling becoming more of a USAF operational norm, the design team now had some leeway in the overall size of their aircraft. Events in Europe in the latter part of the 1940s pushed the XB-52 project forward, rewarding the Boeing company with a hard-earned contract for a single mock-up and at least 2 flyable prototypes. The YB-52 beat the XB-52 to flight testing on March 15, 1952. The XB-52 was rolled out on November 29, 1951, under the cover of night for secrecy's sake, but a pneumatic system failure caused enough damage to the wing trailing edge for the aircraft to be rolled back inside for lengthy repairs. As such, the YB-52 achieved its first flight on April 15, 1952 and did not experience any grand setbacks. The XB-52 finally made it airborne on October 2, 1952. Both the XB-52 and the YB-52 featured tandem seating cockpits with upward-firing ejection seats. B-52 walk-around. At its core, the B-52 design sported a distinctly long and slim fuselage, nearly rectangular in shape when viewed from the front. Wings were shoulder-mounted monoplanes affixed to the forward portion of the fuselage and swept back at 35 degrees. The sag inherent in the massive size of the wingspan forced both wings to slope downward towards the ends when the aircraft was at rest. This required the use of smaller support landing gears, called outriggers, outboard of the outermost engine grouping. Wings could flex an impressive 22 feet up and 10 feet down. Each wing contained 4 engines in 2 engine pairings. If an engine were to feature an uncontrollable fire, the entire pod would eventually come loose and drop off, detaching itself from the aircraft wing and in effect saving the aircraft an unexpected benefit as noted by Boeing designers. The flight deck would be situated behind and above a shore nose and feature window surfaces for views forward, above and to the sides. The cockpit itself was made up of 2 separate floors with the pilot and co-pilot on upper floor. The bomb bays took up most of the lower central fuselage while the undercarriage followed suit with the Boeing B-47 consisting of 4 independently retracting trucks with double wheels at the forward and middle under fuselage positions forward and aft of the bomb bay doors. These trucks could also be steered up to 20 degrees left or right to compensate in crosswinds. The empennage was dominated by a single large vertical tail fin and conventional horizontal surfaces. Modern B-52s, B-52H models operate an electro-optical, forward-looking infrared fluorescence sensor paired with high-resolution, low-light level television and targeting and battle assessing for low and high-level operations. Pilots can utilize night vision optics to enhance low-light flying operations while global positioning systems, GPS allow for visual travel assistance to anywhere in the world. In-flight refueling, along with engine improvements, has considerably and consistently enhanced the range of the Stratofortress. Improvements to crew comfort, general crew safety and versatility to mount high-volume internal and external loads have all benefited in making the B-52 relevant on today's battlefield. B-52 variants. Despite its far-reaching history, the B-52 was actually produced in less than a dozen variants beginning with the aforementioned developmental limited production B-52 model. From the original order of 13 B-52As, 10 were later earmarked for production as B-52B models. Compared to the twin prototypes, the 3 B-52As now featured the more conventional side-by-side cockpit seating arrangement in a revised forward fuselage along with the tail armament of 4 X-12.7 Browning M3 machine guns. A distinguishing feature of the models to B models was the lack of a fully operational avionics suite. These aircraft were fitted with Pratt & Whitney J57-9W engines of 10,000 lift-thrust each. The split-level cockpit featured seating for 3 on the upper deck and seating for 2 in the lower. The lower occupants were given downward-firing ejection seats. The tail gunner was removed from the rest of the crew and seated in his rear-facing turret station sans any type of ejection seat, though the tail system could be ejected in the event of an accident. An unpressurized crawl space was his only link to the front of the aircraft. In-flight refueling was accomplished via boom connection above and behind the main flight deck. Other key additions included wing-mounted external fuel tanks to increase range and decrease wing flexing across the span. Water injection was introduced to the J-57 to assist in takeoff. The 2 prototypes lacked the side-by-side cockpit seating arrangement and the in-flight refueling arrangement of the models and seating for the 3rd upper deck crew member, Electronic Warfare Officer EWO. And B-52 ACA, the high and mighty one, was developed from the 3rd B-52 flight test model. This aircraft, S/M52-3, was modified to act as the mothership in the launching of the experimental North American X-15 hot rod aircraft,